My favourite type is a big battle between Psychic and Ghost types, so I've been very keen to bring in some more Psychic Pokémon into Ostara. Our stretch of land here between Bayern Bay and our new city is called the Cosmic Coast. It'd be a coast filled with sand structures built by people, for an annual sand sculpting competition. Of course, along the way you'd meet some interesting Psychic type Pokémon. All of these mons, save for maybe one, would be available all around Ostara at different points in the game, so you just have to find them. Let's not delay for any longer and start with a new form change Pokémon. Form change Pokémon are fun, and you'd notice how many I make because it's just an interesting mechanic. One that hasn't really been explored though is a sort of flip dynamic, the smaller Pokémon being more deadly than the larger one, and that's what I wanted to explore here. In Australia, we have an Aboriginal legend of a creature known as a Yaramayahoo, which looks kind of like a little frogman with red skin and suckers on their hands and feet. Already kind of horrifying, but the true scary part is that it waits in trees during the day and latches onto unsuspecting people to drain their blood. After that, it swallows them, drinks some water, and then sleeps. When the Yaramayahoo awakens, it regurgitates the victim, leaving them shorter than before, as well as being a bit redder. If it happens again, the person becomes one of them, sort of a zombie movie or vampire in steps. I wanted to play off the fact that there's a few depictions of the creature, its main form based off this one, while the other form much larger and based off the more larger jawed versions. I wanted it to be a small humanoid with a bright, cheerful expression and waving to you, really to let your guard down with it. This one would be the hungry form, so much more powerful but very small. I like the whole sort of Aboriginal paint on it, so I wanted to keep it on there, which helped really give it some great patterning. If this thing wasn't a major bloodsucker, it could almost be some kind of TV cartoon mascot. Definitely would be some kind of tree-shaking encounter in the game as well. Yaramayahoo, the draining Pokémon, a psychic and fairy type. Famine form. Yaramayahoo in this form are ravenous Pokémon that suck the blood of anything it can touch. Their hands have strange suckers that hook onto prey and drain them of their blood. Yaramayahoo's red coloration grows brighter the more blood they have sucked. Despite its looks, Yaramayahoo are actually much more dangerous in this form, moving faster and attacking even deadlier, all in service to get their prey within their grasp. After draining enough blood, they begin to change form to their feast form. Yaramayahoo has a new ability called Feast or Famine, where it changes form after defeating an enemy Pokémon, and it increases the power of draining moves. For the larger form, I wanted it to look satisfied and large, keeping this massive underbite that sort of macabre made so that it would slosh with blood like some kind of pool. It keeps the same colours as the first form and even most of the patterns. Because we don't have both swallowing and transformation in this game, you know what I'm talking about. I think just being sort of a vampire works well enough for these two. It keeps us typing but changes stats around towards a more defensive form on a timer. Maybe a good Pokemon to use in conjunction with draining moves as well. Something about this form just really screams Australian to me. Maybe it has something to do with some slack-jawed bogan air to it, I don't know. Yaramayahoo, the draining Pokemon, Psychic and Fairy. Feast form. When they have had their fill, Yaramayahoo become incredibly sluggish and passive, choosing to rather shy away and rest than try to fight. Its large jaw sometimes sloshes with the blood of its victims and will sometimes fall out. Because of this, its popularity as a partner Pokemon is quite low. When its stomach begins to growl, it will arise and slowly move towards feeding grounds. It knows the exact time it will transform back into famine form, and will sometimes use its surprising bulk to hold down Pokemon for when transformation occurs. This form of Yaramayahoo has the ability Famine or Feast, where it changes form after 5 turns of not defeating a Pokemon, or upon entering half health. Let's do a Beast Paradox Pokemon now. I want something a bit weird and fun, and a comment on the Discord got my interest in what if there was a 0-star threat Beast Paradox, one that was entirely safe to both people and the ecosystem at large. While still horrifying due to their size, let's meet the Beast Paradox Galvantula in its weird ways. For this design, I wanted it to be this strange crystal ball almost looking spider. And what better than the Orb Weaver for it? Get it? Pondering orb? Yeah, essentially it's a giant swirly orb of a spider fluff with Galvantula's smug little head in the middle. I wanted to play up a bit of a fortune teller aspect with their hands becoming little rings that work as a stand-in for earrings. I didn't want to be offensive or anything with this, but I thought it was cute. I kept to the Pokemon rule of safer spiders, which lacks the extra pair of legs there. My biggest focal area was the massive psychic energy web that Galvantula creates behind them all the time. And when sent into battle, that energy would fire out onto the battlefield to create that field in its ability. But I thought it just looked so weird and cool to have it constantly crackling with energy. This form of Galvantula would leave these almost transparent webs of energy around that walking through wouldn't really do anything. They aren't sticky to things that don't threaten it. But during the night, it saps nightmares from you for food, so if anything, it's a nice Pokemon to have around. As long as you can stand the massive spider crawling around your buildings pooping out webs. Maybe I'll take the nightmares, actually. Galvantula, Beast Paradox form, the Orb Weaver Pokemon, a bug and psychic type. When this Pokemon first breached our dimension, we feared it greatly as it created horrifying psychic energy webs across entire towns. However, they did nothing but glow during the nights. Through further research, we found that these webs drained bad dreams from people sleeping to feed Galvantula. Once fed, it left the town in search of another target. It seems to not prey on anything but bad dreams. So far, all observation has led to the conclusion this Pokemon is of no threat to our safety, and is an exception to the Beast Eradication Protocol, 0-star threat. This form of Galvantula has a new ability called Psych Web, where upon entering the battlefield it sets up psychic webs, causing foe's speed to be lowered on entry. It also drains HP of sleeping enemies at the end of each turn while up.
Over the past decade, there have been thousands of Black Panther sightings across the country.
I love making cryptids into Pokemon, and Australian cryptids are fun because sometimes it's just a person or an animal that shouldn't actually be in Australia. And this is where the Blue Mountains Panther comes into play. For some reason we see the silhouette of a cat in the distance and poop our jorts about it. But here it gives me good ammunition for my Fakemon. There's a bunch of theories about what it is, and apparently to this day it's still being cited. Well, when I see it I'll eat my hat. Let's meet Aluva. The idea in my head for this Pokemon was a panther that sort of had an Aurora Borealis thing going on, where its body shifts and wisps with parts of it being completely clear. So the sort of animation it would have looking like parts of its body just weren't connected at all. You'd only see very small glimpses of this Pokemon at one time, just like the real Cryptid. In-game it would be a super rare encounter that you'd only see in the distance, and once you got close it'd become transparent, so you'd have to kind of hunt hard to actually get one. For colours I kept to a dark palette for it. Of course it's a panther, but I also introduced bright pinks and blues to that cool sort of illusory mist look to it as well. Quick, better catch it before it disappears forever. Aluva, the elusive Pokemon, a psychic and ghost type. The coast around Cosford is said to have a Lipard that remains incredibly difficult to catch. Only in recent years have the Pokemon Aluva been found to have been the cause of these sightings from afar. Aluva have the ability to create mirage and illusory zones on their bodies, allowing them to essentially disperse their body parts. They can take on the forms of other Pokemon from afar, making their name the elusive Pokemon an incredibly apt classification. Due to their unknown numbers, Aluva are a status symbol among trainers who are able to catch one. Aluva has the ability Illusion. Next we have a new Pokemon with a split evolution. Although this one doesn't look much like an anise seed, they're supposed to unlock your third eye, and this Pokemon is all about the energies and being able to absorb those energies for evolution, and more so than anything seeing either the good or bad fate it will have upon evolving. I wanted this almost sunken looking little creature where it looks like it's bawling its eyes out from seeing the future. And of course, the orb again. Although it really is rather a simple design, I think it works well for a Pokemon like this. You'll probably not see this Pokemon walking around, but more so that they would be buried in the ground and much easier to see at night, as their head bulb glows a beautiful faint colour, and in a certain pattern that would tell you what version this Pokemon would evolve into. Potential, the anise seed Pokemon, a grass and psychic type. Potential live all around Ostara but flock towards Cosford, where they plant themselves into the ground and absorb the energies in the air around them. Depending on what kind of energy they absorb, it can be a wonderful or terrible evolution. Once planted, all that shows is the crystal-like bud that glows on their head. This glows in different patterns depending on absorption. Fields of potential can actually be a beautiful rolling field of glowing crystals. Be careful not to try and pluck one unless willing to be blasted by psychic energy. Once ready to evolve, potential bursts from the ground. Potential has the ability Forewarn. Because of the sort of vagueness that potential is, I wanted the two evos to be wildly different. The first form, sort of the good form for potential, is based off the red and green kangaroo's paw, which to me looks like some kind of punky hairdo mixed with some scorpion tails, so I thought, what if cool psychic punk rocker Pokemon? It's got a bit of sass and a whole lot of fight in them. The whole body is kept to these drop shapes that end in almost sweater looking accents that really sell the fashionable punk feeling that I was going for. I like the idea that the sort of protrusions it has makes people think that they're venomous or even a poison type, but really during the summer the flowers just bloom and make it look even more beautiful. It even has a reptilian feel to it, which was wholly unintentional, but this thing seems like a contender for throwing down against Serena for kicking Queen. Perfection, the confidence Pokemon, a grass and psychic type. Once potential becomes perfection, it gains a bit of a cocky attitude as its psychic powers coalesce in the form of powerful foresight, as well as dangerous close quarters fighting ability. Despite looking like large stingers, they are actually buds that bloom beautifully during summer months. The flowers that bloom seem to give Perfection increased psychic powers. Perfection are always at odds with Bankseedi, being from the same evolution. Entire halves of Ostara have been claimed by the two different evolutions, but sometimes battles break out into terrifying wars. Perfection have the abilities Unaware and Solar Power. Remember Gumnort? If you don't, I don't blame you. It was in my Pokemon farm video for Ostara, a special legendary given to you for having a great farm. During that I talked about the Bankseedi men, the enemies of the Gumnut babies, and just a horrifying creature overall. So what if we corrupt potential and let it become this monster? Bankseedi has a sort of goofy barbarical thing going for it, as when you look at Bankseedi they have this unsettling look of every pod having multitudes of eyes. So each pod on Bankseedi's hands and feet, and even littering the body, are a pair of honestly kind of depressed eyes. And you would be too if you had to be walked on all the time. I ditched the grass type for dark type as I feel like that speaks for itself really. I made the two eyes different sizes as well as a mustache to really just sell the fact that this thing is just kinda seedy, and will cause some real problems if you let them do what they want. Simplifying the Bankseedi does mean it becomes a bit of a potato, especially for the brown, but it also helps the eyes stick out a lot. I can just see this thing tottering along and stopping in the pose with all the eyes staring at you. Bankseedi, the confidence Pokemon, a dark and psychic type. Sometimes negative energy gets absorbed by potential and it evolves into the sinister Bankseedi, a Pokemon that truly loves nothing more than causing utmost chaos. Each part of Bankseedi contains a small brain which allows it to calculate its moves in advance, and allowing the main brain to be used for other purposes, including levitation and telekinetic attacks. When a limb or extra eye falls off Bankseedi, it actually turns into a potential, which allows it to try its hand at evolving again into perfection instead, although Bankseedi will stay around planting sites to infect the energy of the area. Bankseedi has a new ability called Goading Visage, where this Pokemon has a chance to become the center of attention when entering the battlefield. So if you've been on stream, you've seen this little man. What is he? Who is he? Where is he? Well, I thought now was the right time to introduce him proper. This little guy is a storied history. Started as an OC I made after being inspired by League of Legends' Nixie Little Legend, then becoming a race in my sci-fi world in the form of Pips that came in various colours and were a mix of druids and mechanists. It was also a Digimon with their own whole line of evolutions. Egg, baby, rookie, you get the picture. Look, even my D&D character evolves into it. And then he became my own little mascot mon who will show up in every region, I'm sure, in some form or another. In Ostara, this guy is our mythical, coming from the same wormhole rifts that the Beast Paradox Pokemon do. But this one is weird. They aren't found in the same place all our beast paradoxes came from. They're like weird little curious aliens, but only one can be found in Ostara. The dex entry leads you to believe that they may have spread out across the world for an unknown reason. I want this to be a very fun and mysterious mon. I'd also like to know what you'll think of its typing. Right now, Psypip is pure Psychic, but I tossed up making it Psychic Normal or Psychic Fairy instead. Give your suggestions below what you think of my good pal Psypip, and if I ever get plushies, just know he will be the first. CIP the Nomad Pokémon, a pure Psychic type. One day through a wormhole similar to the Beast Paradox rifts came CIP, many of them in fact, but they all seemed to disappear quite quickly after. They seem incredibly curious and smart enough to use tools after watching humans use them. During the night, CIP sends out a bolt of purple energy into the sky. Why they do this is unknown, but they will actively avoid Beast Paradox rifts, so it seems they are not trying to go home, at least not through that way. The most shocking thing is that research from the Ultra Convergence shows that there are no CIP there. Did they all leave? Or are they not from Ultra Space? CIP has the new ability Cosmic Traveler, where the user is immune to terrain effects. When new terrain is set, this Pokemon removes all negative stat changes and status effects. CIP has a new attack called Cosmo Wave. It's a 60 base power, 100 accuracy special Psychic type move. The user leaps into the sky and gathers cosmic energy, before unleashing it in a powerful wave. The power of this move increases for each increased stat the foe has. If this attack damages the foe, it also removes all stat changes on the foe. Now for the final mon of the video, it's actually a form change for CIP. I'll let you theorycraft what is going on here, but it's not a Beast Paradox form, but a Beast Burst form. To transform, CIP must hold the item known as the Cracked Paradox Stone, which is a strange stone that seems once carved to fit somewhere. When the holder uses an attack with secondary effects, it will shift them in or out of Beast form, or for CIP into their Beast Burst form. So to put into context, I love Antilamon. It's my fave Digimon. It's where my dang love for designs with big hands and long arms come from, so CIP's burst form is a love letter to this, and is also based off this version of its Digivolution. Sort of a larger rabbit version, although I kept some more of the base CIP's features. This would be more like a Shaman to Shaman Sky form, almost shocking in this change. This form has a Steel type added, but again, I'm willing to change it if a better combo is put on my plate. In the end, will this heroic bunny save Ostara? Who knows, not I, just stop asking questions, you. CIP the Nomad Pokémon, a Steel and Psychic type, Beast Burst form. Upon unleashing the secrets of the Cracked Ultra Shard, CIP transforms into this strange form. It still is friendly but wild and rushes headfirst into battle with no heed for their own safety. They can slightly shift their form, usually able to elongate their arms for range attacks, and even jump higher by shifting their leg height rapidly. Researchers are still trying to understand the process undergone by CIP here. When reverted, CIP falls unconscious as this burst form is incredibly taxing on their small body. This form of CIP has a new ability called Cosmo Boost, where upon transformation, they gain an Omni Boost to all stats. So there we have it, a lot of psychic Pokemon who live along the cosmic coast, but also all around Ostara. And we aren't done yet. The last gym leader in Cosford City is all about psychic types, and she is also in possession of our pseudo-legendary, and oh boy is there some history with that one. For now, comment below what you thought of the Pokemon in the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video around. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Here comes the war.